All right. So how do you feel about that, Jen? What does that translate to, like, actually when they can go live? I don't want to completely screw up your system too, is what I need to be mindful of.
You know, we set it up concurrently in the live site and the training site. The training site had some glitches, but the live site had none, like, which actually makes sense because the training site concept is new to BitFocus.
Gotcha.
So I think, you know, it's really up to you. When it does go live, both HMIS team and CES team needs to have some space for people to ask questions and have a plan to monitor for errors and troubleshoot. But yeah, I think whatever you want to do.
Sarah Malucci just texted me.
I know, Charlie from McKinney just texted me. It looks like it's starting in 12 hours. I'm like, no, it's 10:30 a.m.
So how do we fix that? Because no one else is here.
On Eventbrite it says 10:30 a.m.
Yeah, I feel like it's an Outlook versus Google thing. Did Sarah Malucci have the same comment?
Yeah.
I would send out an email quick to members and just say reminders at 10:30 a.m. I don't want to log into Eventbrite right now because it could cause you to freeze.
Oh yeah, you figured them out?
Crystal emailed me too. Something's definitely wrong. What do we do?
Who set up the Eventbrite?
Angelina.
I would reach out to her.
Yeah. Are we sure it's the
I'm gonna log into Zoom.
The Zoom?
Wait, say it again, Tucker?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it might be the Zoom because the Eventbrite page looks okay.
I'm in the Zoom. It says it starts today at 10:30. Oh, someone's ding-donging. Who's that?
Oh, it might be me. Oh, is it you? It might be the admit.
Nothing popped up though to admit.
Oh, click on participants. And then at the top, you'll see admit all.
Oh, it was Pete.
Oh,
Where is everybody? What do we do? Oh, Adam's here. Somebody got in.
Hmm.
Hey, Adam, did you have trouble getting in?
hmm.
Adam, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Did you have
Good
trouble
morning.
getting in?
No, I just was on another call.
Okay. Sarah is having trouble getting in.
Anyone else from your team logged into the Zoom sign-in versus clicking through the link? Like if Pete came in through the sign-in and you did too, I found that that caused some challenges for the HMIS team.
No, I don't see any of my guys on, and women and gentlemen on here.
You're
No
it.
one's here but
Adam,
me.
you're the only one other than rich people.
Of
So
course.
what should I do?
Let me see.
Mm.
Sarah says a bunch of our folks are stuck like me.
Amy, why don't you go into the Eventbrite, send out with the link. I'll send you the link that I used to get on,
Okay.
and then it'll email everyone that registered for this training. Where are you?
What is our Eventbrite login?
Who's in Eventbrite right now?
I tried to log in, it wouldn't let me. Maybe Angelina?
I'm on. Let me see if I can get to it.
I've got on Teams that everyone's having trouble, but I sent them the updated one.
Also, Aim, don't forget to click present at the top. Present from the beginning or presenter view.
Oh, looks like we got people. Oh no, it's just Adam twice.
No, it's going to be me like 3 times because I gave everyone my link. Sorry. It's the only way to get in.
This time.
Well, this is just super.
Oh, the time is wrong.
Good day, everyone.
Do you think we should ask Angelina to put it on our social media as well?
She's not responding to me, but yeah. Damn it.
I'm gonna put it in the training channel. Maria, could you send it out to any of the HMIS Google groups?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Would you send the link out to the HMIS Google group?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
Send it out. All right. So it sent out to all the attendees signed
Okay.
up in Eventbrite. So everyone should be getting that updated email
Like right now?
right now.
Mm.
Okay.
Sorry, just laughing at all the atoms.
He's multiplying. They can go in and click
Five.
and rename themselves.
Yeah, I just sent them the thing saying they should.
Okay.
Heck.
I'm going to reply to Bill. My email from Eventbrite has the right time. So that's weird. It must be a Google versus Outlook issue, maybe. Oh.
So do you think we just cancel at this point? Like, what am I supposed to do?
I think we wait 5 more minutes for people to get the link, and then we go through the training, record it, and upload it to the Alma.
Okay.
I know, it said it was sold out. That's super weird.
Yeah, well, there's supposed to be 85 people here, so.
It worked just now with the link you texted me, but I don't know what happened. A lot of folks didn't get the correct link. I'm going to forward it to my team now, but it might take a couple minutes
Okay.
for folks to get in.
Okay, thank
Maria
you.
sent an email to everyone registered as well. Thank you, Maria.
Go ahead.
Hi, it's Charles. I never received a link. If you want to email it to me, please.
Charlie, I just emailed you a few moments ago with the link.
Different Charles. This is Charles from House of Hope.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Charlie is here, I see. Okay.
Charles, did you sign up for Eventbrite?
Yep, House of Hope. Yeah.
Okay, can you confirm whether or not you received that email? I sent it like just a couple minutes ago. From Eventbrite. It would be coming from Eventbrite.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen, for sending the link.
Yeah, sorry guys. Happy Monday.
Amy, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Right.
Could be better.
Hi, Amy. I miss you.
Hi guys. Miss you too. Good to see you.
Oh my God. I don't think I've ever seen you with glasses on.
Oh, I jumped on the blue light glasses train this morning because my eyeballs feel like sandpaper by the end of the day.
Oh, hi, Amy. I don't recognize you.
The glasses. Good morning. Sorry for our technical difficulties, guys.
What's the hope? It's rolling deep this morning.
No kidding. You guys are the first ones to figure out there's a problem logging in, so that's why you're all here. Okay, you think we start, Jen? What do we do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would. And then it's being recorded, so anyone who is late or misses it can watch it.
Okay.
You type in your name and email? Okay.
All right. Sorry for our technical difficulties, guys. It wouldn't be a Monday morning training without it. Welcome to the Coordinated Entry Assessment and Workflow Training. I am Amy Ferguson from the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless. We are going to ask that you sign in via chat, especially because there's 14 Adam Tussings here. We want to make sure we know who's actually here so that we can give you credit for the training. We'll be stopping for periodic Q&A. So please type your questions into the chat box and we will pause and answer them during the Q&A time. Again, please put your questions in the text box, the chat box. We want to be able to record the questions that come in so we can create an FAQ document. And just a reminder that this training is being recorded and will be uploaded to the learning management system by the end of the day if all goes as planned. Hopefully our technical difficulties will not continue on through the rest of the day. And friendly reminder to please keep yourself muted so that we can have less distractions. So I wanted to start by introducing our trainers. We have the Coalition Coordinated Entry and HMIS teams. I am Amy Ferguson. If Pete and Melissa, if you guys are both here, you want to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Beatty. I'm the accountability analyst for the housing team on the coordinated entry team at the Coalition. And thank you all for being here.
Morning, everyone. My name is Pete Major. I'm the coordinated entry call center manager.
Thank you, Pete. And our HMIS team, if you want to say hi.
Good morning, I'm Jen Barrera. I'm the HMIS program manager.
And I'm Tucker Morgan, and I'm the data and reporting analyst on the HMIS team.
Good morning.
And Maria's somewhere. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm Maria Vargas. I'm the training and technical assistance here on the HMIS team as well.
Thank you, guys. All right, so why are we here? So we're here because maybe your supervisor told you to, maybe because you love to spend time with the Coalition Coordinated Entry team, and maybe because nothing is better than a Monday morning training, which has technical difficulties to boot. There is, I'm sure, some truth to all those, but you're here because change and lots of change. So on December 8th, 2020, the Coalition took over the operations of the Coordinated Entry Help Center, which includes the shelter assessment and referral process. Additionally, our team continues to do our housing referral work, just as we had been doing before. On January 7th, 2021, the Continuum of Care Board approved our new CES workflow and universal assessment tools. And because of those big changes, that's why we're here today. To kind of highlight the big changes, and then we'll go into some more detail as the training goes on. Out with the old, in with the new. So our old assessment, universal assessment tools were called the VI 2.0, the TAE VI, and the FBI for families, and the full SPDAT was used as well. So the VI SPDAT and the full SPDAT are no longer, and we are going to be switching to a crisis assessment and shelter questionnaire, which will be used to prioritize clients into shelter. This can be completed, this assessment tool can be completed by anyone who completes this training for people who are category 1, literally homeless, or category 4, fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, or people who are at risk of homelessness, category 2. There's some more to come on the category 2 piece. We like to be transparent, and I just want to make you guys aware of some issues with category 2. So stay tuned for that. And our full SPDAT is being replaced by the housing questionnaire and assessment. It'll be used to prioritize clients into housing and to be completed once in shelter by shelter staff or other supportive case staff, or case managers, or to be completed once someone declares that they will not enter shelter and will remain in a place not meant for human habitation other than shelter. So again, the crisis assessment and shelter questionnaire are going to be what's used to prioritize folks to get into shelter. And it's for anyone who's category 1, 2, or 4. The housing questionnaire and assessment is going to be what's used to prioritize people into housing. And it's going to be completed once someone is in shelter or when they declare that they will not be entering shelter and they're going to maintain a place not for human habitation other than a shelter. Out with the old, in with the new continued. So you guys have heard our teams use prioritization lists for what feels like forever now. I can't stand the word prioritization anymore. It just pops up everywhere and it is exhausting. So instead of a prioritization list, we're following suit with our new database, and prioritization list is going to be replaced with shelter queue or housing queue. So those are the queues that folks will be on to get into shelter or housing within our system. The next thing that's changing is we currently allow people onto those prioritization lists if you're a high, medium, or low acuity. The new system is only going to allow folks onto the shelter queue and housing queue for high and medium acuity. Low acuity scores will not be placed on the community queues for placement. Rather, they will be provided with referrals to mainstream services as applicable. We don't have enough resources within our system to help low acuity folks, so we want to do away with another one of our wait lists to nowhere. Continuing on, this one might blow your minds. Our housing packet and CES housing referral application is no longer. So Melissa Beatty from the Coalition CES team will be reaching out to you or the client when they are reaching the top of the community queue for a housing referral. So no longer will you guys be submitting the referral application and documentation for any and all clients. Melissa will be contacting you to say, hey, your client is in the top 20 for PSH range. We need to get this, that, and the other documentation ready. And same thing on the rapid rehousing end of things. We found out early on our end of things, but through our evaluation with Cindy Crane from OrgCode, that we had just created an additional wait list to nowhere. So we have something like 200 people on our prioritization list for housing right now, and you don't get anywhere. So instead, we're going to be reaching out to folks who are high and mid acuity, that top 20-ish client list, and requesting documentation when a referral is coming. With this new change in our process, we'll also be bringing back the by name list meetings to case conference those top 20 people. More to come on that in a little bit. And a little note there from the HMIS team, there is a new workflow to upload and label the housing packets in HMIS. So out with the old, in with the new. This is another part of our new system that we're going to be learning together. So currently our PSH folks score 8+, our RRH folks score 4 to 7, and our self-resolve folks score 0 to 3. Because we are using a brand new tool that is unique to our community, we don't yet know what our acuity ranges are. So we don't know what range is for PSH, we don't know which range is for RRH, and we don't know which range is for self-resolve. So since the assessment's brand new, our team will be working to analyze our new assessment metrics to suggest ranges for approval from our COC board. In the meantime, we will operate on a hybrid model, referring clients in an informed way based on their responses to the new assessment tools. So as we gather these new assessment scores, our team will be studying where people are falling, how they're scoring. We'll be comparing it to some extent to the old VI scores and making some educated decisions about what our new ranges are. At that point, we have to submit our recommendations to the COC board, and they'll approve or deny our recommendations, and then we can declare it within our system that this is the PSH range, this is the RRH range, etc. I hear a lot of people joining. If you've not done so yet, please type your name into the chat. We want to make sure that you get credit for being here since we had our technical difficulties this morning. And a reminder that the recording is being recorded. The training is being recorded. There we go. So if you did miss the first couple minutes, you can go back and watch that in the LMS. It'll hopefully be up later today. So who is eligible for the CES workflow and assessments? I feel like I talk about these homeless categories all the time, and you guys may be sick of hearing about this from me, but it's really important that we understand the eligibility criteria. So these definitions are from HUD. These are not, the coalition making these stark decisions that might not feel client-centered or necessarily helpful all the time, but this is what we have to do. This is how we have to operate. So category 1, literally homeless. These are individuals or families who are living in a public or private place not meant for human habitation. So this could be folks that are staying outside, staying in abandoned buildings, staying in a camper with no utilities or running water. This could also be our folks who are exiting an institution where they had previously resided in an emergency shelter or place not meant for human habitation before. So the one thing that's changed with this third point, this institution definition, is with our most recent HUD mega waiver, HUD has decided that folks who have entered an institution from a place not meant for human habitation are in that institution for up to 120 days are considered homeless, whereas before it had been only 90 days. So if someone exits Harrington Hall, they walk out the door, they get picked up on a warrant, they get sent over to the ACI for 119 days. Once they're exiting the ACI, they have nowhere to go. They're going to wind up back at Harrington. HUD now says for that entire period of time, you were considered homeless. So 90 days is out, 120 days is in. This waiver is in place until the end of March. However, our new president may choose to change that. So stay tuned for any information in regards to the mega waivers. But for now, institutional definition is for people who are in an institution for up to 120 days when they entered from a place not meant for human habitation. And as always, a friendly reminder that our folks who are couch surfing or being doubled up is not considered literally homeless. Our category 2 imminent risk of homelessness folks, this includes folks who will lose their residence within 14 days of application for homeless assistance. So people who are calling the call center and have nowhere to go within 14 days, they are considered category 2 homeless when they have no subsequent residence and they don't have any resources to acquire housing. So if someone calls us and they tell us that they are going to be homeless within 16 days, unfortunately, we can't help them. They will not get on the queue and they will have to call back within 14 days of becoming homeless. The thing that I think it's really important to be transparent with everyone about is while category 2 folks are eligible for the queue for shelter and or housing, it's another one of these wait lists to nowhere. So long as there are category 1 clients who are literally homeless, category 1 clients are always and forever going to get a referral prior to category 2 clients. So yes, category 2 clients can call us, they can get on the queue, but until they have actually lost that residence and they are literally homeless, they really won't be considered for a referral. So I'm saying that just to be honest and transparent with you guys and help you and the clients understand that you can call us, you can get on the shelter queue, but until you become homeless, there really isn't much that we can do to help. The one exception, because there's always an exception in a way to confuse you guys, is the transition aged youth. So transition aged youth, also known as TAY, this is our population who is aged 18 to 24 years old. We do have a few programs which are funded to provide shelter, housing, or services for our TAY who are category 2 at risk. So TAY, in theory, can be referred while they're still category 2, and there are actually openings that pop up for category 2 because there aren't any category 1 TAY at times. So that's the glimmer of hope within the category 2. If you guys have questions, please remember, ask them in the chat. We're going to stop periodically to answer your questions. So if you do have a question that's popping up in regards to all this, pop it in the chat for me, please. Our final eligibility definition is our category 4, fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence. So this is anyone who is fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, has no other residence, and lacks the resources or supports to obtain permanent housing. But again, because we always have to confuse you a little bit more, there is more. We do have some DV programs which have to fill their housing and shelter beds through the coordinated entry system, which means we have some DV programs which do not have to fill their housing and shelter beds via CES. So by completing a CES assessment with a DV survivor, you're getting them onto the community queue for CES DV programs. However, you still need to call the DV helpline at 800-494-8100 for information about getting on the remainder of the DV shelter lists. So again, you call us, you get on our wait list for our DV CES beds. You also have to call the DV helpline and get on the rest of the DV shelter wait list. The DV shelter system outside of coordinated entry is not centralized. So you have to call, from what I understand, like 4 or 5 different numbers to get onto all the other wait lists. This has been a very confusing thing for people. It's new to our system. It's new for us as advocates to understand. Don't worry, you're not alone. This hurts our heads too, I promise. All right, Q&A time. Jen, you want to get us into some Q&A?
Absolutely. The first one I see is a question about, is this being recorded, because some people missed the beginning?
It sure is. So yeah, we had technical difficulties at the start. We apologize for that. This is being recorded, and if all goes as planned, it will be in the LMS later today for you to watch the portion that you missed.
Also, as a reminder, make sure that you have signed in to the training using the chat with your name and the organization you're from. You will not get credit for attendance unless your name and org is listed in the chat. All right, Heidi is asking, are people still getting a referral if they will be homeless within the next 24 to 48 hours?
So this is another thing that in theory they can. However, so long as there is someone who's category 1 at that exact moment in time, which is our literally homeless population, then the category 1 literally homeless folks will always be referred before someone who's at risk of homelessness. Good question though.
And that's all I see, Amy.
Okay, thanks. All right, so now to get into our new workflow, and this will get us into our new assessment tools too. I'm just giving you all a fair warning that this is new. It's not perfect, nor will it ever be. Perfection isn't our goal within the coordinated entry team. And we don't have all the answers yet. But with that being said, we look forward to working through this new process with everybody, and we look forward to learning alongside all of you. So we'll do our best to answer our questions as they pop up, and we'll be honest when we say we don't have an answer. It means we don't have an answer, but we'll get back to you on it. So our crisis assessment. Our crisis assessment is our new universal assessment tool, which prioritizes households for our shelter programs. If you are completing this assessment for a family, please respond to the questions for anyone in the family, not just the head of household. That'll make more sense once you see the questions, I promise. Some of the answers will be pre-filled for the head of household as applicable. So there's some questions about age or gender. Those questions will be answered for the head of household automatically, and they don't need to be answered by the end user. The higher the score of the assessment, the sooner the client will be referred to shelter. Reminder, only our mid and high acuity clients will be prioritized for the shelters. Our low acuity clients will not be placed on a community queue for shelter, Instead, they will be provided with referrals to mainstream resources. In the event of a tie, so 7 people all score a 10, we'll tie break by age, with the oldest person getting the next referral. HMIS team?
Okay. So we're going to show you how to access the crisis assessment on HMIS and how to complete it. And when I'm done, then Tucker's going to talk about the housing assessment. So the first thing is how to navigate to the assessment. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're in the coordinated entry agency. So many of you have been trained previously into coordinated entry, so you have access. Those of you who may not have had access after you complete the training today, and others who are not here can watch the LMS recording of this training, take a quiz with a couple of questions, and will also be granted access. So again, if you don't have access to coordinated entry now, you will be granted access after you complete this recorded training, or this training rather, sorry. Okay, so the first thing is make sure you're in the coordinated entry agency. And then if the client that you're completing the assessment for is not enrolled in coordinated entry, you would first need to complete an enrollment. So this second arrow down here is showing you how to click and complete the enrollment. This is not a training about how to complete an enrollment in HMIS, so if you need that, you should go back to the LMS. There is an enrollment training that you could watch. If we go to the next slide.
Next slide. Got it.
Okay, so this will show you once you're in the program enrollment, so your client is either already enrolled into coordinated entry or you just completed an enrollment, you will see the program tab pop up here. So this, the program enrollment tab is the second arrow down. You will then go to the next slide, click on assessment. So this is where our favorite assessment current living situation is. This is where all programs are accessing your status update assessment or annual assessment. And you'll see here, but again, it will only be available in the coordinated entry project. You will see here the CES Crisis Assessment version 1 and the CES Housing Assessment version 1. So we're talking right now about the crisis assessment. So in this instance, you would click Start for Crisis Assessment, and we'll go to the next slide. And this is the assessment elements that are required for all coordinated entry assessments. So both the housing and crisis assessment have these elements. As a reminder, you're going to choose crisis needs assessment for level. And again, for this training purpose, we're actually not going to go through each question individually. The assumption here is that you have access to HMIS. It is in the training site, and you should be able to go into the training site and go through this assessment to explore on your own and become further trained. And we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so the first set of questions here is the diversion portion of the assessment. As a reminder, throughout the assessment, different warnings. So right here, this box here with this little orange triangle with the exclamation point or warning sign. Warnings will pop up based on answers to various questions. So based on age or other answers, if there's a message that we want to tell you about a referral or a message that you need to tell the client, that warning will pop up. So as you are training and completing assessments in our training site, based on the age and household composition, you will get different questions and different warnings. All right, so we're going to go to the next slide. The CES crisis assessment, this next section is related to the chronic health conditions. So as we know, these are the CDC's COVID risk conditions that were revised on December 23rd. So if your head of household or actually anyone in the household has any of these health conditions, you should use the little toggle you click it, and when you toggle it on, it actually turns blue. So any of these chronic health conditions that anyone in the household has, you should toggle them on. Just as a reminder, these are rather specific. So for example, COPD, previous iterations of the CDC risk conditions were lung condition, chronic lung condition, including moderate to severe asthma. The most recent version from the CDC is specific COPD. So you should only toggle these on if the person or member of the household has this exact condition as listed. All right, we'll go to the next slide. All right, there's a few other shelter prioritization questions, such as how long has the head of household been homeless? Does anyone in your household identify as transgender or gender nonconforming? And lastly, does anyone in your household identify as non-white or Hispanic Latino? The next section is the shelter questionnaire. So these are questions that we will be using to place people into shelter to make referrals. And so some of the questions that the CES team needs to know in order to complete placements related to animals or sleeping on top bunks or mats. Also, if there's a couple, would they be willing to be separated in order to find shelter? Because as we know, couples who choose to stay together, there's far fewer couple shelter spots available than there are for individual women or individual men. And so we do want to give couples the option here to be placed separately in order to seek shelter versus waiting for a couple spot to come up. And then there are some other questions related to where they feel safest for shelter, if they may be eligible for shelter or housing for people who've experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, or trafficking, and lastly, if they're interested in sober living. There is a little message here for you. As you're conducting this assessment, it is helpful to prompt the client that the more they're willing and able to accommodate various situations, the more likely it will be to find shelter. So the more they limit their preferences or abilities here, the options decrease. So we'll go to the next slide. Shelter preferences. So we actually have configured every shelter in the state. They will populate based on gender and household composition. So further up in the assessment, if there were no children, then only shelters for individuals or for couples will show up. If the couple answered the question that they do not want to be separated, then only the couple's shelter beds will show up. And then, of course, if someone did indicate that they were a member of a household with children, then only the family shelters will show up in this bottom section. So if we continue on.
I just want to add one thing. So what comes up a lot in meetings, especially our COC meetings, is referring folks to regions of the state that might feel burdensome or what have you. So this is the way that we will ensure that the client choice is being considered. So if someone only wants to be sheltered on Aquidneck Island, that is absolutely positively their choice. And this is where you'll help inform the decision by only checking off the shelter on Aquidneck Island. So we hear you, we agree, we don't want to uproot someone and send them to Woonsocket if they are familiar with Westerly and Westerly only, and that's where they're comfortable. So this is the point in the assessment where you help us understand where the client feels comfortable going.
Okay, so we have indicated, I already indicated that, you know, family shelters will only appear if there's children. And lastly, DV shelters will appear for category 4 clients, but clients will still need to contact the DV helpline. All right, and before, let's see, so once you complete your crisis assessment, you will actually see the score. So here is the score, the screenshot of the score here. You will, once you submit the assessment, it'll show you the summary here and a toggle button. See the shelter queue toggle button here. You will actually toggle that on, and that will refer directly to the community queue. The actual placement into shelter will be happening by the CES team.
So failure to toggle that button means that our team doesn't know that the client needs shelter. So it's really important that you don't miss that step. If you do miss that step, we don't know that they need shelter and they won't be considered for a referral.
Yep. So after this slide, before we go to housing assessment, Amy, there are a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure. Want to read them to me?
Sure. All right. Heidi is asking, since housing packets will no longer be available, how will people be added to the CES housing list?
Good question. So we have some slides coming up about that, so I'm going to defer that question for now.
Emily Glidden is asking, will you look at the oldest person within a household to tie break, or only the age of the head of household?
The oldest person in the household.
Okay. Diane Vendetti is asking, is there a slide deck for this presentation? If so, would you please send it?
So this will be uploaded into the LMS, and then I naively, Jen, don't know. Do we upload like the slides without the recording of the voices?
Typically, the recording contains the sound and the slides. If we wanted to, we could send out this slide deck without the recording to everyone, all of the attendees through the event, right? You could do that.
Okay, we can do that.
Tori Kern says she loves the pop-up message. Yes, Tori.
You asked for it, Tori. You got it.
And as you know, as we get into this, as Amy said, you know, it's not perfect. As we go along, we will find that there may be other warning messages or pop-ups that need to be added. And certainly, if you have any recommendations about that, you could email this the HMIS help desk, and we certainly can add warnings that, you know, programs would like to see added. There's a question from Paula Hudson. Do we complete the assessment prior to sending client to the CES line or before?
So you can do the assessment in place of having people call us directly. So anyone who finishes this training, does the practice stuff in the training HMIS website, you get to go live in our live HMIS website. And then that gives you the ability to get clients onto the shelter queue yourself. So if you as the case manager are doing this assessment with folks, the client never needs to contact us, and neither do you, so long as you click that one toggle over that says, what does it say? Add to queue.
Refer to queue.
Yeah, shelter queue. So as long as you click that button, you're completing the assessment yourself. You technically don't need to contact us at all. We'll consider them in the referrals. Good question.
Lastly, Sarah Malucci, who's a couple steps ahead of everyone, she's asking, should we begin completing these new assessments for individuals that already have housing packets submitted?
We will answer that question a little later, Sarah, but good question. I just scrolled back to, I saw a question from Christina Stenko sent via direct message in regards to 120 days in an institutional. Christina's asking, does substance abuse treatment, mental health apply to this as long as they were homeless prior and will be homeless after. Correct. So if someone wound up going from shelter and they were hospitalized at Butler Hospital for 120 days, they are considered homeless during that time. Good question. Okay. So carrying on. So I completed the CES crisis assessment, including the shelter questionnaire and preferences. What happens now? So you completed those workflows, you clicked that shelter queue button. So by completing these parts of the workflow, your client will now be placed on the community queue, which makes them eligible for shelter. Our team uses the community queue to fill our shelter beds. We will connect with the client and or case manager when the client is being referred to shelter. When we are unable to find the client, we will post a public alert in HMIS in hopes that you can help us find the client by a specific time. So if we have attempted to call both the phone numbers they left us, we've emailed them, if they've given us permission to text them, we've texted them, and we can't find that client, Pete's team with the call center will post a public alert saying, we are looking for a client UID 1234567. We want to refer them to a shelter. We need to hear from them by 5 p.m. tonight. Please have them contact us by 5 p.m. If you guys happen to find that client, you walk out the door onto Broad Street and there's the client we were looking for. The client contacts us, we get them referred to shelter by 5 p.m. Everything's wonderful. If we don't hear from that client, we can't contact that client by the specific time listed in that public alert, we're going to move on to the next person and refer somebody else to shelter in their place. So we're really excited to start using that public alert feature in an effort to better serve our clients. Another question I presume will be coming is, when should I update this assessment? And frankly, you need to not overthink it. You need to update the assessment when there is a change. So if someone was in shelter and they decided, I hate the shelter and I'm never going back, I'm going to stay outside, then you need to go in and update the assessment to reflect that that person is staying outside. Our folks who are outside are more vulnerable than our folks who are inside and would be given an additional point in the assessment to get them moved out off the street and into a shelter again. So don't overthink it, update it when there's an update needed. And once you guys see the full workflow and you go into the training site, it'll make perfect sense that you update it when there's an update needed. No need to email us and let us know that you updated it. No need to fill out a form and submit it to the HMIS desk to let us know that you updated it. Just update it. We'll pull the report. The person will be in queue and they'll get referred as they are the most vulnerable person. Our clients will be closed to CES after 30 days of no contact, which will remove them from the community queue. So if they're still in need of shelter, be sure to keep them active in HMIS. Did any questions pop up from that? Let's see.
Yes. Brienne's asking, if a client calls CES and is placed as category 2 and then becomes literally homeless to a category 1, should they update CES, or is there a way for a case manager to update this in HMIS and move to a different priority list?
Great question. So yes, Brianne, as you get trained, you go live with this new assessment, you as the case manager can update the client's current living situation, and it'll change their priority on our community queue. So you guys have the authority, the power to update the community queue just as our team does. The real only difference between our team and the other end users is that we're the ones who are pulling the community queue and referring to shelter. So please, please, please take advantage of the fact that you can do the same workflow that we can.
And just as a plug for the current living situation, so the current living situation is an assessment that's available to anyone enrolled in the Coordinated Entry Project as well as Street Outreach projects. So the current living situation should always reflect where the client is. So if the client is category 1, like Brianne was mentioning, it should reflect they're in a place not meant for human habitation. Versus if they're doubled up, staying with a friend, that should be reflected that they're category 2. And also, same concept. If they enter a shelter, all of you shelter providers, or if they enter housing, all of your housing providers should be making sure the current living situation is updated to reflect that as well. So our goal is that the current living situation is what is also helping us to identify the priority for people going into shelter. And there are a few more questions, Amy. Christina Stinko is asking, once the client is referred to a shelter, will they be able to remain in the shelter every day as long as they do not leave?
That is correct. So long as there's no, violations to the shelter rules, they can stay there. If the client does want to be transferred because they don't like where they were placed for whatever reason, we need to be informed of that. So preferably, we would like to hear that from the shelter staff, just because we have, more of a direct line with them. But the client can call us back and say, hey, I hate the shelter, I want to leave, can you transfer me? And we can work on that for the client. We do have shelters that will hold someone's bed. So if someone's having like an outpatient procedure and they might have to just be coming in late, or maybe they will be hospitalized overnight for whatever reason, the shelters do let us know, like, hey, we're holding this bed, don't give it away, this person's coming back. So as long as your shelter is operating with the client to say, like, yep, you can come back, then they can come back if they're only going to be gone for a day or so.
Okay. The next question is from Tori Kern. Will clients be closed after 30 days of no contact with CES or 30 days of no contact with any provider?
It's a good question. What's the answer?
Yeah, well, the system has, we've had numerous discussions. So our current Rhode Island state system has decided 30 days of no contact with any provider, whereas HUD recommends 90 days. But at the time that that decision was made, we didn't have clarity in the community queue. So I believe as it stands right now, it is 30 days with no contact with any provider. So that's why it's important, all of you service-only providers, through outreach providers, that you're putting in your services and contacts to make sure people stay open. All right, there's more questions, Amy. Sarah Bell's asking, how should a DV organization move forward with updating a client? We do not use Clarity.
Oh, good question, Sarah. So I have a little slide about this coming later, but it's not really in depth because I didn't know if any of our DV providers would be here. So historically, what we've done with Sojourner House is we shared a Google Doc with just very little information, the DV code, the household composition. And so we'll have to rework that process so that you guys have a BNL, a by name list that you guys are populating yourselves internally. We'll have access to it. And then when we're pulling the report to refer people to shelter or housing, we'll just weave your people in. So we need to know, like, DV code, household composition, and acuity score. And we'll just weave our lists in together and refer people as needed. So we do have DV-CES planning meetings. We didn't meet last week, which is my fault, but we're going to meet this week on Wednesday, I believe. And so in those DV-CES planning meetings is when we'll work out that workflow for the DV population. Good question.
Okay, more questions. Christine is asking, if a client is in the queue, does this mean they will be at that shelter and will be going there until otherwise?
I don't know that I understand.
I think she's saying once you refer someone to the queue, whatever shelter preferences you've chosen, will the person be able to go to that shelter? And
when there's a vacancy and they are the most vulnerable. So if someone only wants to go to Harrington Hall and that's the only shelter that they check off, they'll get there eventually, maybe. So they have to be the most acute person once a bed becomes available. So Jen had mentioned before that the more options the client gives us, the sooner they'll be sheltered. but we do understand that preferences are preferences. So, yeah.
So to be clear, when you complete the assessment and refer to the queue, it is not a referral to shelter. It is referring them to the list. For people who need to get into shelter, the CES team will be looking at the list and making referrals. So there's one step in between. So to be clear, when you complete an assessment, you choose shelter preferences, you refer them to the community queue. It is not a referral to shelter.
Good catch, Jen.
Great question, though.
Yep, good catch, good catch.
Paula Hudson, will we be able to access the client's placement in the queue? Not sure what you mean by that.
So I think the question is, can Paula pull the queue and see the list?
So I can sort of answer this, which is that it's actually a little bit, there's actually not one list. So what will happen is that the CES team will pull all of the clients who are eligible for the particular projects, for the particular shelter openings on the day, based on household composition and all of those things. And so then they will get a list of who are the most vulnerable clients who are eligible for that, for those shelter openings that are available that day. So what the scores are that will make somebody the most vulnerable is likely to change pretty frequently, depending on what the specific openings are and what the eligibility is of the shelter beds that are open on that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think, Paula, what it comes down to be frank, is it's not going to actually be helpful for you to be able to pull it because the list is going to be changing all the time, and then you guys don't have access to the DV list either. So if you pull it, it's not the true picture of where people are on the placement list, and I think it would be a great source of misinformation to pull it and to try and relay back to the client like where they fall on the list or whatever.
All right. There's two more questions. Bill Stein's asking, street outreach programs are still closed after 45 days inactive, correct? And yes, sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out. So clients will be closed to coordinated entry after 30 days of no contact, but people who are enrolled in past street outreach, they are open for 45 days, that's correct. Amy, the next question is shelter versus hotels. What differentiates them regarding placement?
Oh, so that's an easy one. The COC board approved the priority preferences for hotels to be people who are unsheltered, so living out on the streets. That's the first priority. The second priority is folks who are medically compromised. And then the third priority is folks who are currently in a shelter program but have been approved for housing subsidy through the coordinated entry system. So the hotel program isn't first come, first served as our shelters are. They're for people who are street homeless or have a medically compromised situation. And so you don't get to get into those programs unless you have those priorities.
Okay. One last question. Paula asks, does a client have to be in shelter prior to being hospitalized for their hospital stay to be counted as homelessness? If upon discharge they are now homeless, can we count the hospitalization as homelessness?
Ooh, gotcha. So they have to be in a place not meant for human habitation or a shelter prior to entering the institution, or in this example, the hospital. So if Jen and I were roommates, I left Jen, I moved out, I said, I'm out of here, I don't want to be here anymore. And then I wound up hospitalized the same day. And then a week later, I am out of the hospital, I have nowhere to go. That time that I was in the hospital is not considered homeless because prior to going to the hospital, I had been Jen's roommate. So yes, you have to be either in a shelter or a place not meant for human habitation prior to entering the hospital. despite the fact that you have nowhere to go upon your exit from the hospital.
And to be clear, in general, that that requirement has been a requirement or part of chronic homeless and literally homeless definition prior to COVID and prior to this change in our system CES. The difference is that if someone was literally homeless the night before they went into a hospitalization, when they exited and it was on or before 90 days, that was counted. The only difference here is that for COVID waiver, there's a waiver in place that it is now extended from 90 days to 120 days. So that's not something new today to CES or to chronic homeless definition. It is literally just, we're reiterating that there is currently a waiver in place. All right, and I think we can move on to the housing assessment. And Tucker Morgan's gonna take us through that. Tucker, you're muted.
So the housing assessment is another assessment that's in coordinated entry, and it should only be completed for clients who scored in a mid or high acuity range. I think it will take us a few weeks to figure out what those scores exactly are, and we will be in communication, but there will basically be a minimum score from the crisis assessment before we would want somebody to complete a housing assessment for them. And it should be completed when they're in shelter with shelter staff or by outreach staff for somebody who is not interested in shelter and choosing to stay outdoors. And so it's a bit more straightforward, and we hope that we can use it to better make housing referrals with a variety of preferences built in. So again, it will help us in, it's going to be completed by outreach or shelter generally, and it should be mid to high acuity folks. And it should help us understand if the client needs permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing. It's a self-sufficiency matrix tool. So those of you who have been trained in self-sufficiency matrix in the past, or worked in Massachusetts on one of their self-sufficiency matrices, or in another community on one of their matrix tools, it will look familiar because it's a very common tool to type around in the field. So as we've talked about before, it's under coordinated entry assessments, and it's right below the crisis assessment. It's just another version there of another assessment to complete. You have to be in the coordinated entry. You have to be in coordinated entry in order to do so. So the key part is that when you complete it, you want to always select the housing needs assessment for housing assessments. As we talked about for the crisis assessment, you choose crisis assessment for the level there. It might be automatically populating, but that's something to be careful of because we won't count it correctly if it's selected as crisis rather than housing, or vice versa for the crisis assessment. So there are a few different housing priority questions and eligibility for some other pieces. So there's some questions about PCHC, about whether folks would live in SRO type housing, or if there are any areas that folks would would like to avoid for their housing if they don't want to go to if they don't want to go to you know, outlying parts of the state or anything like that.
So on our current application for housing, you guys know that these questions are on there. So this is just removing the paper version of that questionnaire and making it into an electronic version. Hence the reason why you don't have to submit that documentation to Melissa anymore, because it lives in HMIS now.
Exactly. So there are now, so once you select, go through the preferences, then there are the variety of domains. So housing, so there are, we have actually 14 domains, but some of them are auto-populated based on some of the questions. We get results scoring based on existing demographic fields. So each of the domains is scored. There's a different score for each domain, and there are different kind of specific definitions within each domain. So you should look into each question carefully when you're selecting whether the client is, how vulnerable the client is in that particular domain. For example, the mental health domain is one where low score would be somebody who is self-sufficient, doesn't have a history of mental illness or doesn't have any significant symptoms, to somebody who is highly vulnerable in crisis and is actively a danger to themselves or others. When you complete it and click save, you will also get the score there. You'll see the score by each domain there. This is an XSM processor that is, we have an example, but we have configured the current scoring in Clarity now. So you'll see each domain that is there for each question that has been answered.
So I completed the housing questionnaire and assessment. What happens now? So this goes back to someone's question about like applying for housing. By completing that housing questionnaire and assessment, it means that you are now on the queue for our housing queue. So you no longer will be sending us our housing packets. We understand this is going to be an adjustment for everybody, and we'll be kindly reminding you of this if you slip up and notify us that you uploaded the packet to HMIS. In place of the packet process, Melissa Beatty will regularly be pulling the community queue by subpopulation to identify our top 20 PSH range clients and our top 20 rapid rehousing range clients. Once your client enters that top 20, she'll reach out to you and let you know that your client is in the top 20, that we assume will have a housing referral soon. We want to get them document ready, and we need this, that, and the other thing from you. For you guys who have been engaging with this process for the past 8 months, you know that we switched to a low barrier application. So we don't really need much from you guys at all anymore. We will be figuring out the frequency in which Melissa needs to pull that report and working to adjust as this community queue goes live. So again, you don't apply to us. You don't have to submit documentation to us until we request it from you. We know that this housing packet process has really been ingrained in your workflows, and it'll take a bit to undo. But we realized with our eval, again with org code, Cindy Crane, that we created a wait list to nowhere. And it was a recommendation that we rethink how we have people eligible, make people eligible for housing within our system. And then again, reminder to a couple of slides back that we are going to be bringing back case conference meetings. where we'll be talking about those top 20 people to understand what their barriers are proactively so that we can refer them to housing as needed. HMIS, you want to take the web form?
Yes. Before we get into the web form, just a friendly reminder, we have 71 people participating on this call, but only 66 of them are going to get credit because they're signed in on the chat. So if you would like to get credit for attending this training, and anyone who attended this training will actually be able to access these assessments in coordinated entry, please be sure to add your name and the organization that you're from to the chat. Just your name and the org you're from will be enough for us to take attendance and make sure that you're properly credited.
I'm going to interrupt and answer questions first, actually.
Okay.
So, Bill, your question made me laugh. So we're using a hybrid one. So according to your question, we're using the bad one, but with a couple of specific questions added by our community. So once you get into HMIS, you can check out and see the questions in there. But we added questions about race and LGBTQ to make sure that we're being considerate of that subpopulation. And then Adam asked what's high acuity and what's low acuity. We talked about this at the start. We don't know yet. So these are new tools for us, and my team is going to be processing the data to determine what our new acuity ranges are. And in the meantime, we're going to do our best to make informed decisions and referrals. So the sooner you guys complete the training, the sooner you go live, the sooner we can determine our acuity ranges. So I can't stress it enough. Please, please, please get this thing in action within your organization so we can figure out those ranges for you. And thanks for logging in, everybody. Okay, go back to the web form. Bill says I'll continue to lobby for the, I don't even know how to say that, county version. It's way better than the lobbies.
That's the original from Washington, the state of Washington. It is so much better.
How to enter that on a Zoom meeting?
It's very long, though, I think.
Yeah, it's customizable. That's the idea. Is there's like 20 something. There's 20 something domains, but you're only supposed to use like 8 to 10.
Got it. Got it. Well, if you would like to submit a recommendation to our board, to the COC board, we can work on that.
Oh, Adam's saying this is the real Adam. I'm not asking those questions. So just as a Zoom protocol, if you are logged in using someone else's link, we realize there's an issue, no problem. Just click on your picture or the box that contains the name that you are logged into, and you can rename yourself. So if your picture or the box that you're logged in as has a different name, just rename yourself. It's quite easy. Okay, we're going to talk about the web form. So one more new feature coming to coordinated entry in our community is a web form. Meaning when people are seeking assistance and it's outside of the hours that our call center is open, or if it's during call center hours but they don't wish to call, or if there's a wait or they have to wait for a call back, they can go to our website. So it's not live yet, but it's coming in the next week or so. They will be able to go to a link on our website, and through the secure link, they'll be able to enter all of their client profile elements. So in any HMIS record for a client, when you enter the client profile, I think most of us are familiar with the elements. It's name, first name, last name, date of birth, if they have an alias, gender, race, ethnicity, and veteran status. So all of those client profile elements people can fill out themselves through the secure portal. Additionally, for the secure portal, I've listed here a screenshot of additional elements. This says my email address because I was testing it, and you had to provide an actual real email address, not a testy tester email address. So Don't everyone email me. So clients that are seeking this assistance can enter all of their client profile information plus what you're seeing here on the screen, which is their phone number if they have one, the city and town they're calling from, an email address, preferred method of contact. They can choose text, email, or voicemail. Is it okay to leave voicemails is a question. And then where will they sleep tonight? So a little mini current living situation there. So if you are entering data into the coordinated entry agency and you view a client profile, you may see these elements. So we just want to warn you that the client profile in the coordinated entry agency is going to look slightly different to allow for these elements. If you scroll to the next page, you will not need to do anything different with your workflow. So the only people who really have work to do related to this are the call center staff, because they're going to be following up on inquiries. But please be sure to enter the location, the contact information, and the current living situation in the traditional location. So everyone has been trained to complete an enrollment, to update a location, to update a contact information, and to complete, if they need to for the type of project, a current living situation. Please continue to do that in your normal manner and do not go into the client profile in the coordinated entry agency and add that information here.
So again, this is just another way for us to be accessible to the clients and try and expand our reach. So clients can log on to our website, they can click on the web form, they can submit this data to our call center, and our call center staff will get a notification that we have to call them or email them or text them. So it's just another way to be accessible to the public. Okay, so Sarah Bell, your question from before about DV providers, here's our very brief slide. The short answer is we will come up with a way to share data, hopefully through a Google form for each DV provider, and we'll weave in those by name lists from the DV providers into our lists and make referrals, including those folks. So stay tuned for more information on that. So what we've just reviewed is our new assessment tools. We are saying farewell to the VI and to the SPDAT tools. So what does it take to make the switch? And the answer is time, commitment, and patience. So everyone needs to be reassessed. Everyone needs to get their crisis assessment done. Everyone who needs housing needs to get their housing assessment done. So your organizations have to, review these tools, reevaluate your workflow, and figure out what is best for your organization to get these tools done with your caseloads. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. And you guys, I know, are committed to doing this work, so we'll get there. Only one assessment per household needs to be done, so please remember that. If you go into HMIS and see that another organization completed the assessment, we don't need a second assessment to be completed, so you don't have to duplicate somebody else's work. And in addition to that, we're helping too. So our coordinated entry team will be calling back clients open to CES who are waiting for shelter to complete the, I have to change that word, to complete the crisis assessment and the shelter questionnaire. So we'll be doing our end of the work too. We'll be contacting the clients who are on our radar already. We'll be posting a public alert in HMIS of our top priority households. So you can let them know that they should call us back. Or if you happen to see the client, you could complete the assessments with them when and if you see them. So we're going to take some time, figure out who our top 25, 30, whatever clients are that we really are trying to get assessed. We'll share that in the public alert and hope that you guys can help us get those assessments done with folks either internally at your org or by saying, hey, Sarah, make sure you call CES, they're looking for you. So stay tuned for that pop-up to come up in HMIS. So I mentioned a couple of times that we're going to bring back case conference meetings. So for those of us who have been around for a while, the placement meetings have been around for a very long time. The first time I participated was when they were on West Fountain Street, Riverwood office. And they've morphed and changed and ebbed and flowed throughout the years. We are going to bring them back. We put that into our Consolidated Homeless Fund request. So we're committed to bringing those back for you guys. Friendly reminder that we, one, don't know for sure what we're calling them yet. And two, that in these meetings, we will only be talking about those top 20 PSH and top 20 RRH clients. And the purpose is to better understand what their housing barriers are proactively. So that way Melissa can take back all the information from you guys as their advocates and understand what barriers they have so that she can make the best housing referral for the clients. We will no longer be printing that 1,500 person by name list that I don't really know what the purpose was of. So we won't be providing you with that anymore. We won't be sharing as much information, especially in our virtual world. I feel uneasy about sharing so much client information on a shared screen. So we're going to take a step back. We're going to work with our HMIS team. We're going to work with the COC to figure out the best way to implement these meetings with our virtual world and with all the other changes that have happened. And we intend to have these meetings back up and running in the spring of 2021. I assume at some point the COC board will put a call out for co-chairs to facilitate these meetings. So if you or your organization is interested in co-chairing, keep your eyes peeled for that email. So we got off to a rocky start. We had technical difficulties, and then we threw a whole bunch of information at you that might not feel like it makes any sense yet. Don't worry, you're not alone. We understand, and we're here to help. So each and every Thursday, you're going to be invited to join us from 1 to 2 p.m. for office hours. So Teresa and Ben will be co-hosting from the CES diversion team with myself and Melissa and Pete. Eventually, you know, some of our staff will switch out and switch in, but initially at first, our staff is committed to me, Pete, and Melissa all being there to help understand your questions, comments, and concerns. So just like the HMIS team has office hours, we're stealing their thing. So bring your questions, your comments, your concerns about CES, and we'll talk through them. First come, first served. Whoever's there first gets their question answered and asked first. You can join to simply listen and learn if you don't have any questions. This is not a place where you would advocate for clients. This is where you come and talk through the changes of these workflows, of these assessments, any struggles that you're having systemically with coordinated entry. Join us for an hour, help us understand what they are. These conversations will help us inform changes and recommendations to our COC board, so we strongly encourage that you attend. We'll send out a calendar invite hopefully tomorrow, so that you can get that on the calendar. It'll be a virtual meeting. You are not going to show up at our office because we won't be there, but there'll be a link, and hopefully we don't have technical difficulties this time, but there'll be a link to join us in a virtual room, and we look forward to doing this for you guys weekly to help make this transition as smooth as possible. All right, let me go to our questions.
So Amy, the first question is from Bill Stein. Will the full SPDAT still be available in HMIS for those of us using it for other purposes? And I think I can answer that. It will not be available, but we can make it available to you if you submit a request to our help desk. We can turn that assessment feature on an agency by agency basis. Excuse me. The next question is from Christina. When will this be active in coordinated entry?
That's after you complete the training. What did you say, Jen? People do the training site for 2 weeks? Is that our usual?
Yeah, I don't think we've determine the actual date that this will go live for anyone who's trained. So stay tuned. We'll send out all of the HMIS related messages, go out via our email listserv for anyone who's active HMIS user, so we will be able to notify everyone that way.
Cool.
The next question is from Monica. If someone was referred to rapid rehousing, but while in the program is determined to really need permanent supportive housing, how do we refer back to CES for a permanent supportive housing referral?
Oh, great question. So if I understand what's coming in our HMIS, you'll be able to do all referrals through like the referral tab as it was in our old database. But for now, Monica, just continue to reach out to Melissa directly and HMIS team. I don't know if you have any insight to chime in on like when that referral feature will be available.
Well, currently the shelter configuration is what we're working on. So the housing program configuration will be next. So it will not be possible until that configuration is completed.
Got it. So stay tuned. Once we have that next part of like CES 2.0 built out, I'm sure we'll come back together for another training to review the referral tab. So for now, Monica, just reach out to us.
There's a couple more questions. Brianne has a question. If someone is in need of diversion funding for non-payment of rent, should we refer to CES number or Crossroads?
That's a good question. I don't know if Teresa or Ben are on the call and want to chime in, but I actually emailed them this morning to get a little clarification myself.
If they're on the call and unmute, that would be great. But otherwise, in coordinated entry, there is an event that is referral to diversion that if you have someone who's in need of diversion funding, you should complete a coordinated entry event, which is the coordinated entry version of providing services. So if you create an event, which is referral to diversion, that would trigger the Crossroads diversion team to receive that person's information to reach out to them. Okay, there's more questions. Paul Hudson, for clients who have had a housing packet uploaded and have been on the priority list, do we now need to do an assessment on them?
Ding, 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 you are correct. So Melissa's gonna be working this week to reach out to all of the case managers who have referred clients to us and that are on our current prioritization list to let you know that you have to do this training, to send you the link to the LMS, and to let you know that this, that, and the other client need to have their assessment done. If you already know who those people are, cool, that's great. But Melissa's just gonna do our due diligence to make sure you know which clients are assigned to you that need to have this new assessment done.
Also, comment Heidi is put in the chat, diversion funding is not for non-payment of rent. It is for assistance with payment for first month's rent or security. Non-payment of rent resources should go to Housing Help Rhode Island, correct? I don't know. She says, as of yet, diversion funding is for security deposit and first month's rent, not monthly rent. Yes. Okay.
I don't know the answer to that, Heidi. It seems like Teresa or Ben aren't on this call to clarify, but we can work on clarifying that for you. I think we need to clarify.
Yes, no, actually, I'm from the diversion team, so that's what I'm saying, that it is for secure deposit and first month rent.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, what other questions do you guys have? Okay, thank you for bearing with us through our technical difficulties. Reminder, if you did miss the first, however many minutes, we'll have this uploaded to the LMS today if all goes as planned. You can catch whatever you missed in the LMS. And then if you have staff or colleagues who missed the training, the live version right now, they can watch this in the LMS too. And then our HMIS team will be checking to see who's completed the training, who passed the quiz, and we'll be turning on the assessment live at some point in time, and we'll get that information back to you of when this will go live for you guys to use. Big thank you to our HMIS team, our CRC board, our stakeholders who participated in the creation of this workflow and assessment, and to you guys. I know, especially with the pandemic, our work's been harder than ever. So we just wanted to make sure that you heard from us that we appreciate you guys, and we appreciate the work that you're doing, and the work you're doing is really important. And change is hard, and this is another change for you guys to adapt to. So thank you for you know, continuing to show up every day to help our clients. You're making a difference. Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Take care.